Welcome to Podcast Portugal. I'd like to extend a really warm welcome to Alexandre Relvas Jr. He has kindly offered his time today to speak to us about his beautiful winery here in the Alentejo, Casa Relvas. Alexandre.
Hello, good afternoon. Thank you about the invitation. That's true. I consider myself a farmer. I'm part of a family of farmers. So Casa Relvas, it's more than all a farming company. We are on the farming business for 5 generations in different parts of Portugal and even different parts of the world.
Wow.
My father began this project in Alentejo in the 90s, and our first business in farming in Alentejo was cork, so cork forest. And then on the end of the 90s, he planted the first 10 hectares of vineyard. So until then, we had grown a lot. Nowadays, we explore around 350 hectares of vineyards.
Wow.
550 hectares of olive groves, and 300 hectares of almond orchards, and 1,000 hectares of forest. So that's the reason we consider ourselves farmers. And as farmers, we try to go a bit further in 2 of the products we produce, which are the grapes that we transform in wine, and we sell that wine 100% bottled. And on the olive, we are still a step before than we are on the wine. We already have our olive mill, and we produce quite a lot of olive oil, but we only bottle around 10% of our production.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So a quite different
Diverse.
Business than wine, the olive oil.
Excellent.
So the wine business is nowadays our main business. It's where we employ a bigger team, and where we go from the land to the shelf.
Mm-hmm. Well, I've actually discovered your wine. I think it was in Continent. And, I've appreciated it for a long time. It's Rita, my partner's favorite wine. And it's just an easy drinking wine that you have, São Miguel.
Yeah.
It's really easy drinking. It's a nice table wine. It's a very good value for the flavor. It means we can drink a glass of wine with every meal, which is excellent. And we really appreciated it. And then we did a little bit of research on the Herdade here, and we noticed you actually had a really interesting kind of tourist offering as well, where people could come and sample the wine and sample some food. Is that correct?
That's true.
Yeah.
So we that brand, São Miguel, it's our main brand, and the name comes from the place we are. We are in a small village called São Miguel de Machete. It's actually the place we are now, and so it was São Miguel who gave the name to that farm that we in Alentejo we call Herdade, which is a Portuguese very unique name for a land you receive by inheritance.
Okay.
And yes, part of our business nowadays on wine and on olive oil is tourism, something which is increasing.
Increasing, fantastic.
We have a big event which is called Dia em São Miguel.
Yeah.
Where we open our doors for the families. It's a very kids-focused event where the parents, they can have some wine, some food, and the kids, they can have an approach to the Alentejo culture. But we are open every day on the week, some Saturdays as well. And we try to provide an experience which is very focused on the knowledge of the people who is coming to visit us, because you have people that come here and they are making a wine tour, and they are coming to Portugal just to visit wineries, and normally they are quite experts. And then you have some visitors that come to Évora and they go to see a church, a cheese factory and a wine factory. They don't really want to have all the technical details, but they want to live part of our culture, and we try to share that with them.
Yeah, yeah, it's fantastic. It looks really, really beautiful, and I think the Alentejo is somewhere which is really nice to discover. I've lived in Portugal, as we were talking about, for 12 years. I lived in the Algarve, of course. I lived in Sagres. I lived in Lagos. I lived also in the north in Ericeira. And we recently moved to Alentejo, to Almonte, a little bit south of here. I'm also now starting to call myself a farmer, although we only have 2 hectares. But I do everything by hand and try to follow some regenerative farming practices. We grow all our own vegetables and things, which is really, really nice. And actually, we're starting to save a lot of money on our supermarket shopping and eating really good quality produce. Wow.
And increase a lot the quality.
Ah, yeah. And so I really wanted to sort of say, like, have you really noticed quite a few more people sort of discovering the Alentejo and everything it has to offer here with the castles and the what you call it, enotourism?
Enotourism for the wine, and olivo tourism for the oil.
Okay, fantastic. And you know, people like to travel these days with that sort of intention to learn about things, and you really, with wine and food, you really get an experience of that unique flavor of Portuguese culture, which is excellent. So let's go back to the São Miguel wine. What is it that actually makes a good wine? I know that sometimes you get certain seasons which either have more water, or more rain, or less rain, or whatever. I'm also, my limited understanding is a lot of the flavors and subtleties come from the minerals in the soils, is that something, or is it more in the process of once you've taken the grapes at a certain age, you then start to distill it in a particular way? I'm very ignorant about winemaking, but I'm very interested. What makes a good wine and what makes not such good wine?
Okay, so I'll try to make it easy. Wine is made out of fruit.
Yeah.
So one of the only way to make a great wine is to have good fruit.
Okay.
Okay, and then to have good fruit, you need soil, and I really believe when you have a healthy soil,
okay, fantastic,
you will have better quality on the fruit.
In terms of microbiology,
bean balance,
yeah,
you know, and then depending of the fruit, you need the climate.
Yeah.
And we are quite lucky in Alentejo to have that sun, and that allow us to ripe very well the grapes. Okay, so ripe and healthy grapes are the number one reason you have a good wine. Then on the winery, nowadays we have a lot of technology. Everything is you can ask ChatGPT something, he will answer very quickly. But we are not that developed on the winemaking. But there's a lot of techniques. There's a lot of everything.
Is that to keep a consistency for every bottle? From
I always say that the hardest decision of a winemaker is doing nothing.
Okay.
Because you have always hundreds of options to take. But I was telling that nowadays, even with grapes which are less qualitative, you are able to make wines which are very correct. But to make it great, you need to have great grapes. Okay? And so on the winery, we should try to respect the integrity of the quality of the grapes, okay? To respect the place from where the grapes come. We want our wines at Casa Relvas to be easy drinking, easy to understand, but with a big footprint of Alentejo. We want people to enjoy to drink them, but we want to have a sense of place.
Like to
when you taste this wine, you say that this comes from a sunny place with.
Okay. And what are those? And what are those sunny characters in a wine? What gives it that? What is the flavor to a layman that when you taste the wine, it opens the story of Alentejo.
One of the success of Alentejo, it's the how easy and drinkable are the wines. Okay, so those are wines which are not complicated in general. So the consumer, it's easy drinking for the consumer. Okay, the tannins, because of the ripeness, the tannins are smooth.
Okay.
You don't have too much acidity, which makes the wine as well easy to drink.
That's what I've noticed with yours, actually.
And another very important thing is that Alentejo has a very stable climate, even with climate change or not change, I don't know, but with the, nowadays, we still have summer and dry, warm and dry summers, and normally you have a very big consistency in between the vintages.
Yeah.
And that's very important for the
Yeah,
consumer.
I'm sure. Because I guess you get a consumer, they get hooked on their particular brands.
Yeah.
And then suddenly a bottle is completely different.
Because when you go to the supermarket and you buy a bottle of Herdade de São Miguel, or your wife goes, you don't look at the vintage. You say, I know that brand and I like it.
Yeah.
So when you change the vintage, you should have the quality. And what happened in some iconic regions, and they are iconic as well because they are quite extreme. So is that you have the very good vintages and then vintages which are...
And we're talking, when we're saying vintages, we mean like the particular year that
year.
wine was produced.
Yeah.
And how much does, I noticed the San Miguel, I think we drink a 2020, a 2022, and a 2019. And how much does the aging in the barrel make the vintage, and what is the decision processes there, and are they in oak barrels or I noticed also winemakers also are in steel. Is it steel? Big steel?
Yeah.
And I think the oak is pretty much there to give it a little bit of flavor. And sort of then how long can you also age it in the bottle, and what are the factors people need to think about there?
So that's a complex question because to answer that question, it's important to maybe think on the wine in 3 different tiers: everyday wine, premium wine, and super premium wine. Okay. So a premium wine, everyday wine, it needs to be direct, fresh, give pleasure, being easy drinking. So sometimes to have all that fruitiness and smoothness, the wine is not going to keep very long on the bottle. Okay, but it's a wine that you need to drink 2, 3, 4 years. Okay. And there are normally wines that we don't put on the barrel. Okay, they are aged on the stainless steel. When you think in premium and super premium, there's a little difference in between them that I cannot even explain in words. You know, it's I call it the star. You know, when that wine have the star, it can be super premium. But you only know that wine is super premium also after aging, because we believe on the sector or on the wine history that the super premium wines, they need to last. Okay, so they are normally wines with a longer time of aging, and they need to be still fresh on the bottle after 10 or 12 years.
Wow.
Okay?
And it develops some kind of complexity which is intangible almost.
And that complexity, which is a lot of times intangible, it's part of an aging process. On the beginning, we have 3 families of aromas on the wine: the primary aromas, which are the fruit aromas, fermentative aromas, and then you have secondary aromas, which are the aromas of the aging, so a little bit of oak, etc. And third aromas, which is the aromas that the wine is going to get on the bottle, which is our those more earthy aromas, balmy aromas that the big wines which we have after they are aged.
That's super.
It's very complex.
It's super
very
interesting,
complex. And it's one of as winemaker, one of the most difficult decisions for me to make. It's to understand how that wine is going to be in 10 years.
Yeah, and do you have somebody, and do you have somebody that takes that particular vintage or takes a certain amount of grape juice and decides, you put it through some of the process, and then you from the taste you decide, okay, maybe that's going to be more towards the premium and super premium, so then we put it in an oak barrel, or do you just go a little bit by chance?
No, we don't go at all by chance. We know already, we work on the field, on the farms, in different way to produce the super premium, premium, and the everyday wines. So we know nowadays we work our vineyards for around 20 years, and we know more or less which are the vineyards that always give quality for us. And on those vineyards, we work in a very, very, very close way on the vineyard. We give every attention to those vineyards. Mm-hmm. Something that we cannot give to the vineyards of the everyday wines, because we need to
keep the prices down.
Because this is everything very beautiful, but then the consumer on the everyday, they need to have wines 3-4 euros. Okay. And so we have on the reds 3 different ways of working. We have the red grapes for rosé, that they are very different because it's grapes that we fertilize in a different way, we prune in a different way, etc. Mm-hmm. And then for red wine we have super premium vineyards, and we have the
easy drinking
vineyards.
Yeah.
Because the grape, it needs to be ripe, and it needs to be in good health. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But you need different things from the grapes.
Yeah, that's so interesting. And I know, I actually spoke to it was a seed company, and I have done some work in the past as an agricultural field surveyor for a Danish company, and talking about minimum till and these kind of things to really to keep the microbiology of soil and not to. And it's quite a hot topic today, especially in the US. With using chemical fertilizers, and gradually you get a depletion in soil quality. And I'm sure as a farmer, and I'm sure as a producer of such quality produce, that must be you need to have somebody, I'm sure, that makes sure that your soil has got a good longevity.
Yeah. So something very important for sustainability, not only for the soils, but also for the costs, is that know exactly what your plant needs. Mm-hmm. Okay? Because one of the reasons there was a lot of resources going down to the water sources and everything, because the farmers were giving too much to the plant. Mm. Okay? Nowadays, the farms and the vineyards and the olive groves and almond orchards, we have a very, very, very precise intervention. Okay, so for every plot, we have analysis of soils, the analysis of the leaves. We know exactly the water they need. We know exactly the nutrients we need, and then we try always to work with organic matter, because nowadays there's a world of organic matter with different elements you need for your soil. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, when needed, we use nitrogen, we use another kind of fertilizers. Mm-hmm. But we use them for the exact quantity the plant needs. Yeah. Okay, because nowadays you need that, that during the the vegetative growing season, the plant will need this, and this on this place, okay? Because what she needs on that place, that vineyard, can be completely different than what she needs in another farm, you know?
Wow.
So even the way we irrigate and everything changes a lot.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a whole super interesting world, and it's becoming more and more. The consumer is becoming more aware of where their food is coming from, and I'm finding on our very small farm, like I spoke to you before, we try to grow our own vegetables, and it's very difficult to actually be completely organic, because you have oversprays, you have a water source which you're not necessarily knowing what's coming in, and I think Europe and I think Portugal has done a really good job with ensuring that we keep a close eye on our industry, on our soil. I think it's been. I'm comparing it to what I understand from the US with what's going on with glyphosate, and it's fantastic here that we're not allowing that in any produce.
Yeah, I think Europe nowadays it's very. If you see the index of the phytosanitary products you were able to use 15 years ago and nowadays, the book was like that, now it's like this, you know. So
it's the beauty of some regulation.
Yeah. But it's good to have regulation, but we need to be competitive. But that is for another day.
Yeah.
And but I think that in Europe we are really one step forward. I don't really believe in organic.
Mm-hmm.
It's
impossible almost, right?
And being organic, maybe you're not being more sustainable than if you
more
look
scientific.
to be regenerative or...
Yeah.
Because in organic, there's a lot on the vineyard, for example, you need to spray a lot more. You don't have sometimes the minerals you really need for the plants. And then one of the things I believe the most in sustainability is the biodiversity. And being organic, you produce less per hectare. So to feed several number of people, you will need to have more hectares producing, and less wild spots, you know, and it should be in balance.
For what you were saying earlier about your different hectares on the Herdade, you have lots of wild spaces and lots of different multi-crops. It's not just one monoculture.
Yeah. And we are very lucky here at Casa Relvas and in Alentejo, because the cork farms, they are a world of biodiversity, you know, and we are producing cork out of there. But cork is really amazing because you don't need to spray, you don't need to make a lot of things.
Yeah, and they're protected, right? So
they're completely protected. You go in jail if you cut one.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And it's literally it's protected the soil underneath, and it's allowed pasture, so you get like a traditional regenerative system going.
Yeah. And you can have animals in if it's quite close like ours are.
You
can have some sheep, and it's fantastic.
Great. Well, thank you so much. I think Alexandre will wrap it up there. If there's anything more you want to talk about, if there's any events you have coming up that people should hear about.
We have that one day in São Miguel.
The family.
We call it dia em São Miguel.
Yeah. And that's here, right?
That's on our first winery.
Okay.
Which is
another
more
spot.
on the late.
Okay.
It's on the middle of the forest.
Yeah.
And soon on our social media at Casa Relvas, we are going to give some more information. It's always the last weekend of May. Okay,
great. So I'll make sure everyone knows something about that, and I'll do a post to let everybody know. Fantastic. It's been a pleasure, a real honor. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you, Alexandre. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Podcast Portugal. Through wine, we unearth the rich history and vibrant culture of the Alentejo region, a journey blending the traditions with modernity. Special thanks to Casa Relvas for their support. From tastings and winery tours to hosting events like family celebrations or business meetings, Casa Relvas offers an authentic experience of Alentejo's finest produce. Whether you're exploring their vineyards or discovering their wines, their team is ready to welcome you and share their passion. Don't forget, you can buy a selection of wines directly from the winery. I'll drop a link in the show notes and on our website, podcastportugal.com. If you haven't yet, please subscribe to Podcast Portugal on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or YouTube Podcasts. Let's continue connecting cultures, inspiring discussions, and celebrating everything Portugal has to offer. Drop us a comment, leave a review, send us some recommendations of podcast subjects you want to hear, or just send us an email. We'd love to hear from you. Lastly, a big shout out to Band of Four for our amazing soundtrack. Thank you. Out.
Are not obscene. I just need some time, some focusing. I got the pen, I got the sheet, I got my plan, I got my screen. Someone down